Thank you, everyone, for subscribing to Infinitely Productions. If you have not done so, please click the bell and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy our content.
Valachi's target was a henchman for a rival family.
Joe told him that he was going to take him to a game that was right around the corner, where he could be killed by two guys who were waiting to kill him. And that's what ended up giving Joe the entree to the Lucchese crime family.
Now that Valachi had proved his loyalty, he was ready to be initiated into a lifelong alliance with his new family. November 1930, 25-year-old Joe Valachi sat in a dark room in upstate New York, surrounded by a veritable who's who of the Mafia. They included Salvatore Maranzano, up-and-coming mobster Vito Genovese, and Lucky Luciano. Over 30 years later, Joe would describe the scene for the nation.
Let's demonstrate just what you did.
In other ways, now, this piece of paper. This
What?
piece of paper is going.
Paper's burning.
You light it.
Yeah?
And then, in your hand, you say, well, again, they give you words in Italian, but I know what it meant.
In other words, while you were repeating
Yeah.
the words, you were burning the paper.
Right. This is the way I burn if I expose this organization.
If you think of grown men going through this mumbo-jumbo the same way that college kids join a fraternity, it's sort of hard to look at and say they could do this one day and kill the next day. But in fact, it is all part of this scheme, the thing that makes the mob the mob.
So began Valachi's life as a made man. He was in on the ground floor of a new kind of criminal organization. The five families of New York divided up territory, and Valachi began to work as an ordinary mob foot soldier.
They hang around the social club. They can get, they get girls. It's not like going in and hitting a time clock every morning. And you're not in a big bureaucracy where you got to worry too much. If you know your place, you can stay there.
Valachi understood his place. He was a soldier in New York's Italian Mafia. Violence and murder were the tools of his trade. By 1931, Salvatore Maranzano made a power grab and proclaimed himself boss of all bosses. In response, ruthless mob underboss Charlie Lucky Luciano put out a hit on Maranzano. Fortunately for Valachi, he was out with friends and thus removed from the line of fire. By now, Joe was aligned with Salvatore Maranzano. Fearing for his life, he went into hiding. The safe house belonged to the family of Gaetano Reina, a mid-level mobster who had been killed in the Castellamarese War. While there, Valachi met Reina's daughter Mildred, a 22-year-old dark-haired beauty. Against the wishes of Mildred's family, the two began courting.
Joe is a young mobster, and his possible father-in-law had been a ranking mobster. Now he wants to marry the daughter, and the family don't have anything to do with him.
When Joe complained about the family's interference to future mob boss Vito Genovese, Genovese was happy to step in and smooth things over.
It's Vito Genovese, as I recall, who goes to the family and says, take him, he's a good man.
On September 18th, 1932, Joe Valachi and Mildred Reina married. Within a year, Mildred gave birth to their first child, a boy named Donald. At first, Valachi was a dedicated father and husband, but soon after Donald's birth, he spent less and less time with his family. Even with a new family and a new connection to his Mafia family, Joe wanted more. He was willing to disobey his godfather to get it, and to one day break his oath to save himself. In November 1930, Joe Valachi had become a made member of the Mafia. From the beginning, he worked hard to make money and reap the benefits of being a made man.
Life of a soldier can be glamorous at times. You can make scores. You can, rub elbows with famous people sometimes. It can be, a heady time. You can have the big moments.
Valachi was a typical low-ranking mobster. He collected money, ran numbers, and took part in several hits.
I found him very mainstream, except what he was doing. Valachi had all the problems that anybody had. He worried about his mortgage, his house in the country. He worried about his kids' education.
In time, he grew tired of being at the bottom of the organization.
You hang around the social club, they tell you have to do something, one day you do it. And most of the time you don't do much. It's an easier life. And a little more money. They didn't make fortunes. None of them were rich. He was doing gophering and occasional hits. And then he had a few, bookmaking stuff, whatever, little rackets.
Joe Valachi became what can only be described as a knuckle-dragger. The boss would say, this guy is late on the loan, go to his house, and if he doesn't give you the money right away, smack him in the face, throw him out a window, whatever you got to do. Oh, okay, boss. Well, again, you don't need criminal geniuses to do this kind of work.
Your boss, the skipper, takes a piece from you, and he sends his money up. So, everything you earn has to go up. Your wife is looking for money. If you got somebody on the side, she's looking for money. So it's not quite, all it's cracked up to be, in Goodfellas.
In time, the stress of paying for his lifestyle forced Valachi to break the mob's rules. In the winter of 1946, Joe and a mobbed-up partner opened an upscale restaurant called The Lido in the Castle Hill section of the Bronx. But within months, Valachi realized that his partner was stealing. Valachi, who didn't deal well with betrayal, took matters into his own hands. He beat his partner to a pulp. By doing so, Valachi broke a cardinal rule of the mob. They called it the no hands rule.
You could beat the hell out of an associate, but if it's a made man, no. And again, there was a very practical reasons for that. Without that rule, you'd have people at each other's throats all the time, and it would be organizationally a mess. So the idea was, if you had a beef with somebody, you went to the bosses.
Joe was lucky. Mafia bosses agreed that his partner probably deserved a beating. This was one of several events that convinced the bosses that Valachi was a loose cannon.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.